即摆到12点咧听迄个演讲哈，嘿，咧录啊，讲话无要紧，我麦克风关掉。
Recording in progress.
Oh, اسمع Hey, finally. Okay. Hello. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Oh, all these technical problems.
Good afternoon.
Battery sometimes. Good morning. Good morning. Shall we start? I am Liliane Holz-French, the co-president of Euromed Feminist Initiative. We are together today around the crucial issue of education. So let us start. Your Excellency, Ambassador Anne Dismore, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and dear friends, you can believe me, it is always with a huge pleasure that I am involved on behalf of our network, the Euromed Feminist Initiative, in an event with our Syrian partners. It is with pleasure, but with emotion, always. We are working together for more than a decade. And the question is, how long we wait for a democratic and peaceful future in their country? And today, my emotion is, of course, also linked, cruelly linked, is the fatal earthquake that has so harshly struck the Syrian people. And alas, also with the death of two feminist activists for Syrian democracy, Dr. Basma Kotmani and Mrs. Safia Mubarak. Our thoughts are
السيدة قدماني والسيد مبارك، وأنا أقدم
honor their memory. Her Excellency, Ambassador, open our event. Your Excellency, it is a great honor for me, for us, to have your participation to this event. I leave you the floor.
Thank you very much, and good morning to some, and good afternoon to some, and thank you very much for inviting me to give some introductory remarks. And I do this in my capacity as the chargé d'affaires of Sweden to Syria, a country which I go to regularly, usually once a month for a few days. And this event is in collaboration with the Euromed Feminist Initiative and Women's UN Report Network. Violence against women and girls is one of the most pervasive violations of human rights in the world, and one of the least prosecuted crimes, and a significant threat to lasting peace and development. And today, more than ever, it's important to address this urgent matter in the Syrian context, as you all join together to advance human rights, democracy, and the common values of humanity. And the toll that years of war, made worse by gender inequality, have taken on girls and women, that's immense. And the widespread poverty and movement restrictions, discriminatory gender norms, and a lack of security have led to steep increase in school dropouts, leaving more than 2.4 million out of school. And I think it's very concerning to read that the percentage of adolescent girls who attend schools have dropped significantly from now 30% compared to 60% before the conflict. And this, as we all know, this subjects go to child marriage and also often resulting in domestic violence. And unless efforts to protect and safeguard women's and girls' rights are strengthened, there is a risk that a whole generation of girls in Syria will enter adulthood without having had the opportunity to go to school, become economically independent, or contribute meaningfully to society. And this, of course, will have profound consequences for wider society, peace building, and long-term development. Allow me to say a few words about Sweden's role in this. Sweden, together with the rest of the European Union, we are very firm and a proud supporter of Syrian women's rights activists, and we will continue to provide support to women's rights organizations towards eliminating violence against women and girls in Syria in all its forms. Education is critical to building voice and power, but progress for gender equality and violence against women and girls, especially in schools, is absolutely crucial. Being a long-standing partner to UNICEF and UN Women, Sweden has demonstrated our commitment to child and women's rights. And recently, the Swedish government supported the rehabilitation of 22 learning centers in Raqqa. And between the years 2012 to 2021, Sweden has contributed an estimated $30 million for UNICEF's humanitarian response in Syria. And also, I don't want to brag, but Sweden is also one of the few donors in Syria that focuses on gender equality, and we take a long-term approach to strengthening the capacity of Syrian actors. And here I really would like to highlight the important role of civil society in order to promote more effectively gender equality and women's rights. Because this, I strongly believe, can contribute to creating a vision for the future in spite of the huge difficult situation that exists in Syria today. It's important that we transform harmful norms and stereotypes and biases that pervade and degrade the education system. We must try to create safe learning spaces in person and online that not only protect girls and women from gender-based violence, but propel their creativity and their potential and innovation. And let me conclude by reminding us of another aspect, which is also very, very important. And it's the millions of adult women who have already missed out on education in Syria. And they need a different educational support, as well as access to childcare, training in life skills, and decent paid work. So I conclude here and by saying how much I look forward to hearing the insightful inputs from our 4 prominent speakers and moderated by Lilian Hall.
Your Excellency, I thank you very much for your words. You will forgive me, I am sure, because probably the emotion, but also the technical problems, I didn't present your very bright career from a diplomatic advisor to the Swedish special envoy to the Israeli-Palestinian peace talk, to the direction of UNRWA, to an ambassador to the Security Policy Department, and the member of the Nordic Women Mediators since founding. I really sincerely apologize for this. I think that technically the things will be better. I want to thank you for your words. I want to thank you again for your presence, and to thank through you the Swedish support, the Swedish governmental support that you provided us all along these years to work and to deal with the tragic situation of our Syrian colleagues. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. I will leave the floor now to Mrs. Alice Mofresh, that I will not forget to present now. Alice is a member of the Syrian Constitutional Committee for Syria. She is a long-term feminist activist working on engendering all the political processes. She is a founding member of the Syrian Women Political Movement and also a founding member as well of the Syrian Women Network. Alice, I'll give you the floor.
شكرا ليليان، وشكرا لسعادة السفيرة، وتحياتي للحضور جميعا ولزميلاتي على المنبر. ودائما نحن نشكر الجهود المستمرة للعمل على التحديات وصوغ سياسات عملية محددة من أجل تعزيز المساواة الجنسانية. وأشكر أيضا المبادرة النسوية الأورو متوسطية وشراكتها الفاعلة معنا نحن السوريات العاملات بجميع المسارات السورية. طبعا أشرتي ليليان إلى الزلزال، وقبل البدء لابد من هذا المنبر من أن نعزي أنفسنا بالضحايا الذين قضوا بكارثة الزلزال وبخسارة زميلتنا في اللجنة الدستورية السورية رئيفة سميع، التي قضت تحت الأنقاض ولم يتم انتشال جثتها إلا بعد مضي 4 أيام، مما يدل على التقصير الذي حصل والذي ضاعف من معاناة السوريين والسوريات، خاصة في المناطق المتضررة في سوريا وتركيا. دائما نقول نحن لم ننجو بعد من هذه الكارثة، وبتنا نقول في سوريا فوق كل ما حدث جاء الزلزال أيضا. ولا بد أيضا أن نقول بأننا خسرنا وخسرت الحركة النسوية والسياسية واللجنة الدستورية القيادية السياسية النسوية المؤثرة صديقتي بسمة القدماني، التي طالما ناضلت لحل سياسي مستدام في سوريا. بالوقت الذي ينصب فيه تركيز واهتمام المجتمع الدولي الآن على المساعدة.
The international the community is now focusing its effort on assistance, reconstruction, rehabilitation. I would also believe that there are some attempts in order to normalize the regime, and because of this very complex situation, the regime is going to perdure with its
ضد السوريين بشكل عام والنساء بشكل خاص، لأنهن ما زلن يعانين من تقاطع أشكال الاستبداد، وتجسد ذلك بقطاع التعليم. على الرغم من أن النزاع أثر بشكل كارثي على مساحة سوريا كاملة، إلا أن هذا الأثر ليس متساويا بين جميع المناطق والمجتمعات المحلية، وتحديدا بين الرجال والنساء أو بين الأولاد والفتيات. دائما أكثر المتضررات هن اللاجئات في المخيمات والنازحات والمعتقلات والمختطفات، وممن عانينا من الحصار والقصف بالاستخدام العشوائي للأسلحة المحرمة دوليا، بما في ذلك العبودية كانت تحت سيطرة داعش. هذه العوامل بمجملها ساهمت بحرمانهن من التعليم، إجبارهن على التزويج المبكر والقسري كما قلت ليليان، إضافة لمعاناتهن من العنف الجنسي والتهميش والوصم من قبل قوى سيطرة الأمر الواقع. لقد بلغ معدل الفقر في سوريا لأكثر من 90% في جميع أنحائها، وانعدم الأمن الغذائي. بالتالي تبدو الحلول والعلاجات التي تأخذ بالأسباب الظاهرية وتترك جذر المشكلات واحدة من المخاطر، ويأتي التعليم في سلم تلك الأولويات لما له من أهمية ولما للتعليم من دور مجدي في تقويض ظاهرتي العنف والتمييز. ما زال النظام يعتمد منهاجا مؤدلجا للحزب الحاكم وسردية السلطة العنفية، وما زاد الوضع تعقيد في النزاع فوضى المناهج التعليمية بسبب تقسيم البلد إلى 4 مناطق أساسية خضعت لقوى سيطرة أمر واقع سياسية وعسكرية وأمنية، وحيث أنه كل سلطة تفرض نظام تعليمي مختلف من حيث الإدارة، من حيث اللغة والموارد البشرية أو البنية التحتية والتمويل، وسيما الأدلجة السياسية والدينية على هذه المناهج الدراسية، إضافة لتحكم المانح بتعويم أجنداته في مناهج مخيمات دول اللجوء، والنقص في أعداد المعلمين المؤهلين أو المعلمات، ولعب ومن هذا المنطلق أيضا لعب اقتصاد الحرب بجرائم لقادة النزاع الذين يتحكمون بالموارد بممارسة العنف الاقتصادي على النساء، اللواتي افتقدن الوصول للموارد وللبيئات الآمنة التي تدعم التعليم، وزادت المعوقات بسبب سوء الخدمات من الكهرباء والإنترنت. هذا الوضع ضعف بتعميق تسييس الهوية السورية وزيادة الفجوات الجندرية. بينما اعتمدت السياسات الدولية الفاشلة والمسيسة، وأعتذر عن هذا الكلام ولكن كل سوري وسورية يشعر بالخذلان، اعتمدوا فقط على الحشد للمساعدات الإنسانية بالحد الأدنى ليبرروا عجزهم عن إيجاد حل سياسي للأزمات الإنسانية. دائما ما نقول بأن الحلول الإنسانية غير كافية في وقت الأزمات، بل تحتاج لحلول سياسية، وقد ثبت ذلك الفشل بكارثة الزلزال التي أدت من جديد لإضعاف الاستقرار الهش وفي شمال غرب سوريا، لنزوح وتهجير جديد وتهديم المدارس، والمتصدعة منها للأسف تحولت لمراكز للإيواء فضاعفت من انهيار التعليم. أثناء النزاع لم تكن الاستجابة الطارئة للأمم المتحدة على المستوى المطلوب، لأنها اعتمدت ما يسمى نهج التعليم الإغاثي أو تعليم الطوارئ، وهو كأمر واقع دعم السياسات الأمنية بتعميق التمييز. ما نحتاجه بالضرورة هو العمل على تذليل هذه العقبات بإعادة توجيه الجهود لمكانها الصحيح باستراتيجيات ذات أثر مستدام، والأخذ بالتحليلات الجندرية، إنشاء أنظمة مؤسسية بديلة لمعالجة الأسباب المباشرة وغير المباشرة، لأن هناك ترابط بين التعليم والتنمية وتفكيك أسس النزاع. عملنا كفريق متنوع من الناشطات النسويات مع
education, development and peace.
صارت المجالات الأساسية في الأجندة النسوية المشتركة لمناهضة العنف ضد النساء والفتيات في سوريا، وقد شملت هذه المجالات من خلال المشاورات الوطنية حول أجندة المرأة والسلام والأمن ومشاركة المرأة سياسياً والتشريعات الوطنية ووصول المرأة إلى الموارد الاقتصادية، إضافة إلى التعافي والعدالة والتصدي للقوالب النمطية الجندرية وتغيير الرأي العام لمناهضة العنف. وطبعا هذا لا يتم بالمجمل إلا بإدماج منظور النساء بجميع القضايا والمناقشات المتعلقة بسوريا من المستوى المحلي إلى المستوى الدولي. بينما نرى بأن إعادة إعمار قطاع التعليم وتوحيده يبدأ بخطوة الحل السياسي وصياغة الدستور المتوافق مع منظور الجندر ليتم تثبيت الأساس القانوني للمساواة في المواطنة وإلغاء جميع أشكال التمييز. هذا ما نحاول طبعا العمل عليه كنسويات في اللجنة الدستورية، ولكن للأسف بسبب قلتنا العددية كنساء ونسويات في هذه اللجنة وغلبة الذكور على السيدات فيها، هذا أولا، ومن ناحية ثانية توقف العملية الدستورية والسياسية تزداد المخاطر. لماذا؟ لأن المناهج التعليمية هي الرديف للدستور، هي مدرسة المواطنة الأولى لبناء المجتمع وتكافؤ الفرص في عملية التعليم على المستوى الوطني. بناء الدستور يترجم إلى منهاج وطني حساس للجندر. هذا يتطلب كما قلت تفعيل الحل السياسي أولا وأخيرا، لأن التأثير الذي يحدثه النزاع والتقسيم والأدلجة ينعكس على قطاع التعليم ويعقد ويضاعف التمييز ضد النساء وتمكينهن ووصولهن للتعليم، وبالتالي يعيق مشاركتهن السياسية كشرط لازم. تداعيات الزلزال أيضا الآن أثرت على التعليم، مراكز إيواء لا يوجد فيها تعليم والتعليم متوقف. نحتاج إلى استجابة مستدامة. أخيراً، كما أوصت الأجندة النسوية المشتركة بزيادة فرص التعليم للفتيات والنساء على المستوى القريب وعلى المستوى المتوسط والبعيد، بضرورة ضمان حصول الفتيات على التعليم الأساسي الإلزامي وتوفير الإعانات التعليمية للأسر ذات الدخل المنخفض والنساء المعيلات، إضافة إلى ضرورة ضمان بيئة مدرسية ملائمة ومتوافقة مع منظور الجندر من حيث الصحة والسلامة وظروف العمل، لتعزيز المساواة الجندرية ومعالجة جميع هذه القوالب النمطية في الحيز المدرسي وإلغائها من المناهج المدرسية، إضافة لضرورة إنشاء مراكز تعليمية خاصة للفتيات المتسربات والأميات وأيضا للأطفال اليافعين. ولا بد من التأكيد أننا يجب الاستثمار بالرأس المال البشري، وهو تدريب وتوظيف معلمين ومعلمات ليكونوا مؤهلين ومؤهلات على أساليب التدريس لهذه الفئة من الطالبات. شكرا لكم، وأي أسئلة نحن دائما موجودين وجاهزين. شكرا، ليليان.
Dear Alice, many thanks for your beautiful, strong and moving témoignage and request. You know, we have been working very intensively. Amal will talk about this during our meeting about on the issue of education in the frame of our campaign in the 7 countries of the South Mediterranean. And be sure that this experience will be shared with you, and we will support you towards all the goals that you have described here. Thank you very much, Alice. I will give the floor now to Sabah, Mrs. Sabah Alak. Sabah is also a member of the of the Constitutional Committee for Syria, and a member of the Women Advisory Board to the UN Office of the Special Envoy for Syria. She has been a member of the Syrian Women League since 1985. From 2004 to 2006, Sabah was a woman coordinator for the Syrian Commission for Family Affairs. She is a relentless activist for CEDAW implementation in Syria. And she was part of the preparation of Syria's first reports on this convention. She attended the CEDAW committee in 2007. Sabah, I leave you the floor. Activate your microphone, Sabah. We don't hear you.
Okay. Now you hear me? It's okay. مرحبا جميعا. شكرا ليليان على التقديم. شكرا سعادة السفيرة آن وشكرا لكل المشاركين معنا بهذا الحدث. وعم يشعرني بأنه رجع الاهتمام بملفنا السوري بعد ما غاب فترة بعد أحداث أوكرانيا. وللأسف يمكن الزلزال لعب دور كتير كبير بكارثة الزلزال، فرجع الاهتمام بالسوريات والسوريين. حتابع اللي حكته.
Sabah, please. You by mistake you shut your microphone and the interpreters can't hear you. Yes, you are back.
Okay. التركيز اللي بهاي الفترة حركزوا على تعلم الكبار، واللي هي تجربة كتير مهمة أيضا جزء من التعليم. نحن بتجمع سوريات من أجل الديمقراطية الحقيقة كنا جاهزات من سنة 2012 وبدعم من إيفي المبادرة الأورو متوسطية لتجهيز حقوقنا كنساء في الدستور السوري القادم. يعني من 2012 بدأنا بمبادئ دستورية وحقوق النساء، وأصدرنا عدد كبير من الوثائق ذات العلاقة بالدستور والمنظور الجندري واللغة الجندري وإلى آخره. فكنا حقيقي جاهزات وقت صرنا باللجنة الدستورية أنه لدينا مبادئ دستورية من منظور جندري نستطيع نقلها والدفاع عنها والنضال ضمن اللجنة الدستورية. وأريد أن أشير نحن حقيقة عدد قليل من النسويات، لكن بفضل الحركة النسوية السورية أصبح لدينا رجال داعمين ويأخذون الخطاب النسوي وحقوق النساء، فأصبحنا يعني كتلة لا بأس بها تتحدث حول حقوق النساء في اللجنة الدستورية. الآن التركيز أنه السنة الماضية كان لدينا تجربة في عقد مدرسة نسوية، وكان هذه المدرسة النسوية أول تجربة تحدث لنساء سوريات، وقمنا بإنجاز مدرستين، مدرسة في بيروت ومدرسة في تركيا في غازي عنتاب. وكان الهدف هو تشميل أكبر عدد ممكن من النساء السوريات من الجغرافيات المختلفة. وكانت حقيقة بدعم أكيد من إيفي تجربة ناجحة لأنها تشميلية، لأنها هدفت إلى تعميق المعرفة بالمفاهيم النسوية والجندرية، بتعميق المعرفة بتاريخ الحركة النسوية السورية والإقليمية والعالمية، وبأننا جزء من الحركة النسوية العالمية، وهناك تقاطعات كبيرة في الحقوق فيما بيننا. وركزنا أيضا على تعريف المشاركات بكل القرارات والاتفاقيات الدولية ذات العلاقة، فحقيقي كانت هي نوعية لأنها تزيد المعرفة وتهيئ لجيل يحمل الفكر النسوي، يحمل راية نضال، لأنه سوريا، نحن كنساء سوريات نعاني من تمييز كبير جدا على المستوى التشريعي والقانوني. لا يوجد في الدستور السوري مادة تنص على المساواة، ولا يوجد في دستورنا مادة تناهض العنف وتجرمه، ولا التمييز ضد النساء. لذلك كنا بحاجة أيضا إلى جيل يحمل راية النضال من أجل الاستمرار بنضاله من أجل حقوقنا. وهذا ما حضرنا أنفسنا إليه، وهذا ما نأمل بالمدرسة النسوية أن تخرج رائدات نسويات وخاصة شابات. وهذا العام أيضا مخططين بدعم من إيفي على إنجاء استمرار والمرحلة الثانية من المدرسة النسوية. إذا تعلم الكبار هو جزء من مرحلة التعليم، لذلك الدعم اللي زميلتي أليس حكت عنه هو استدامة الإغاثة بمعناها التنموي، أي أن ترصد أيضا، وخاصة السويد الآن هي ستكون رئيسة، يعني هي بالاتحاد الأوروبي، ولدينا ب16 آذار مؤتمر بروكسل لضحايا الزلزال، أن يكون هناك توصيات باتجاه أن يكون الإغاثة التنموية وتخصيص النساء وتعليم النساء وتمكينهن أيضا ضمن هذه الإغاثة، من أجل استدامة حقيقي الحراك واستدامة حياة الناس وتمكينها ومتابعتها، وخاصة النساء، لأنه العنف والزلزال والحروب والنزاعات الكل يعرف بأن النساء هم ضحايا لأكثر من مرة، ونساء سوريات ذكرت أليس تعرضت لكل أشكال أنواع العنف. فمن هنا كان التركيز عليه. أيضا كنا محضرات أنفسنا لمبادئ دستورية تأخذ بعين الاعتبار حقوق جميع المواطنين والمواطنات. سوريا بلد متنوع الهويات الثقافية، وقد حرمت أغلبية الكل ما عدا العرب من حقوقهم الثقافية، من تعلم لغتهم الأم. فنحن أيضا من منظور جندري ومن منظور مواطني أكدنا على حق تعلم المواطنات والمواطنين السوريين
on a national belonging or feeling, we actually emphasize the role of the cultural rights of the components of the Syrian society and culture. And this is part of our work among small groups in a way that each citizen in Syria would feel, regardless of their difference, whether ethnic, geographical, or religious, everyone would feel that we are all Syrian citizens and we actually enjoy the same rights. That's why we propose these principles to be included in the Constitution, and we actually looking forward to a very clear speech or text about eliminating any discriminative law and fighting discrimination in every aspect of public life and politics. Also in March, we worked with AFI on how to define the women, the UNSCR 1325, we also need to work in a sustainable way because there are many generations that need to deepen their knowledge about this fight and about this declaration. So our demands are very clear: a sustainable relief or humanitarian aid, support any need in our work in the political sphere, support the political process ongoing in Syria. And this is one of the purposes of this platform in which you are participating. And of course, we are ready to hear your contributions and your ideas about this matter. And thank you very much.
Thank you, dear Saba. About the Constitution, I take the Sorry, Saba, I'm sorry. I was thanking you, dear Saba, as you can imagine, and saying that about the Constitution, we have a wonderful tool, ABC, for a gender-sensitive constitution, in which some Syrian activists have been very, very strongly involved for the writing. So I'm sure it will be a good support and reference for your work. Thank you for your word. Nice to always be with you and hear you. And I leave now the floor to Mariam. Mariam, are you here? Mariam, are you here? Can you take the floor?
I can hear her intermittently. Thank you, dear Sabah. Okay, so Mariam is off the mic right now.
Mariam, please take active. Your microphone is on now, so I leave you the floor, dear.
اوكي تمام، عم تسمعوني صوت جيد؟
We hear you.
Okay.
Okay. So I wanted to thank our dear Sabah concerning the feminist school or feminist summer camp. It was an excellent initiative, and the role of civil society currently is actually presenting these concepts and principles related to equality, to equity, to the feminist movements, to the legislations related to women's rights. What I wanted to underline about this school is actually about the history of feminism, especially that the Syrian feminism or feminist movements is actually a very essential part of the history of the world feminist movements. And it's not actually very well promoted. It's practically non-existent in the curricula related to the feminist movements around the world. So it's good to actually establish these concepts in a more systematic way, and it is very important for the work of the young feminists, because we as feminists, we want to introduce ourselves as militants, as activists, especially when it comes to the legal frameworks. We actually know very well the legislations related to our work and our work, yes. And it's very important to know these concepts. It's very important to integrate them in the curricula, whether in schools or universities. I lost Mariam again.
Please, dear Mariam, your microphone is out. Please. Yes, you are back.
كنت عم أقول
Thank you.
So I was saying, I'm losing Mariam. I was saying that I actually wanted to talk about these few points, and these like achievements are very dear to me, and I want to thank you all. That's it. I lost her again.
You are still here? Are you still here?
موجودة.
Mariam, are you
عم
still
أقول
here?
إنه
Have you,
يعني هاي
Yes, I'm here.
have you finished? Have you finished, or do you want to say some
yes.
words? Some more words?
لا
Hello?
شكرا جزيلا.
Okay.
No, that's
Okay.
it. That's it. That's all I have to say, and thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, dear, for your presence. Thank you for your presence. I think that this experience of feminist schools is providing consensus, unanimity to the benefit that they are bringing for our cause in all the contexts. So it is nice to hear your words, Mariam. Thank you very much for this testimony. I will leave the floor now to Amal. Mrs. Amal Graische is a Palestinian feminist human rights defender. She is also a political leader who has been serving since 2006 as director of Palestinian Working Women Society for Development, PPWSD. Which is let us say, the biggest organization in Palestine that focuses on women's presence and power in private and public life. Among many other campaigns, Amal has led the first program to support and protect women against gender-based violence in Palestine. She's part of the steering committee for the implementation of the resolution, UNSR Resolution 1325, headed by the Ministry of Women's Affairs. And she is the co-founder of the Palestinian Women Coalition for this implementation. She is a gender expert in the EU to follow the Euromed process developed by Euromed Feminist Initiative. Dear Amal, I leave you the floor.
Thank you, Lillian. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, combating gender-based violence starts by schools. It being Gandhi's claim that if we are to reach real peace in this world, we shall have to begin with children. Thanks for this opportunity to address your esteemed panel. It is of great pleasure for me to speak about emancipatory and combating gender-based violence within the educational system, but within such complicated contexts like Palestinian. No possibility to disconnect the internal situation in Palestine from the context of the Israeli illegal colonial occupation that dominates Palestinian daily lives. emancipatory should be utilized to disfigure the structured power within a given community. And in my country, it should contribute to disfigure the power structures imposed by the illegal Israeli occupation and the community conservative, I mean the Palestinian community, conservative, patriarchal, and fundamentalist power and system as well. However, within the nature of the occupation that denies Palestinians' rights to exist, then it becomes a tool to enable Palestinians exist and maintain their culture and national identity. The occupation tended to interfere within the Palestinian pedagogy, mainly in Jerusalem, to eliminate any mentioning of the Palestinian national question and in the school text, and to abolishing the Palestinian narration. In the West Bank, Israeli authorities proceed in demolishing schools, especially in the remote areas and Bedouin gatherings. Demolishing the schools deprives hundreds of students, mainly girls, from attending schools and sensitizes the patriarchal mentality of the community to deprive girls from attending schools under the pretense that the all-over situation is not safe. Those girls actually face a big challenge of the early marriage. And of course, they exposed to different kind of gender-based violence. So here is a picture about the correlation between colonialism and patriarchy is clear. On the internal level, according to a study published by the Palestinian Ministry of Women Affairs, Palestinian pedagogy are still gender blind. There is a need to institutionalize gender equality within the Palestinian pedagogy to play a role in enhancing the principles of justice and equality and democracy. To endorse gender equality within the pedagogy, then a process that requires cumulated efforts, including a political will to enhance the principles of gender equality on the level of the community in general, and in the curriculum and in the educational system. The Palestinian Basic Law and the international human rights law instruments to which the State of Palestine acceded emphasize the principle of gender equality and women's human rights, but the texts in themselves are not adequate. A practical step are needed. The school text, just a minute. The school books are the major pillar within the educational process and the most effective tool to realize the principles of gender equality. In the Palestinian schools textbooks, gender equality was not well seen. An example is the discrimination in using males and females' names in the lessons text. The female names were not mentioned in the school books of the first and second grades, but the males' names were mentioned 8 times. Another example is in the textbooks of the 9th grade, where female names are mentioned 4 times, while male names were mentioned 74 times. Here, the discrimination is clear, and there is an attempt to absentee women as the distribution of profession, and also for the distribution of professions, there is also clear discrimination. In the textbook of the 8th grade, 6 professions were mentioned as associated for women, while 67 professions are mentioned to be associated with men. It seems that stereotyping of the labor market starts here and developed to be clear discrimination against women and economic gender-based violence in the labor market. In one of the books, there is a lesson about a visit paid to a dairy factory where the owner who receives the visitors, males, is a man. This image reflects the power relation and that men control the resources and industry and in public life. As women organizations and in the light of the accumulated experiences, we believe that creating change starts at early ages, mainly at schools. In our culture, we are raised on the base to respect teachers and students, usually are affected by their teachers. Thus, we believe that teachers mainly at schools serve as one of the effective channels to enhance gender equality and to combat gender-based violence among our kids, so the future generation of our community. Combating gender-based violence is no more limited case, but it is a path to achieve international peace. Combating gender-based violence should start at schools with early childhood. Kids should not be exposed to any form of violence, either inside or outside schools. At this, basis, from our experiences with the Euromed Feminist Initiative, we ran a program for 3 years under, the the name of this program was Zero Tolerance for Gender-Based Violence for Girls and women. And through this program, we succeed to build partnership between civil society, women and human rights organizations, and the ministries of education in 7 countries in the southern part of the Mediterranean. And we actually have a wide network from teachers who had been trained within, specific annual for dealing with violence from violence from gender perspective. And those teachers become, agent for change. And some of them continue the work with us and attended for the first time in Palestine. Teachers participated in a conference with their minister and other ministers in the region last October in Jordan through this, initiative. So what I can say that taking in our consideration the shrinking of civil society because of the growing of the fundamentalist and conservative power all over the world, create more challenges for us to work together, learn from our experiences, and to develop the concepts of the teachers, the students about gender equality, to face all the hated discourse, social discourse that and the attack against feminist and human rights defender. The way is still long, but what we need really is to collect our power and learn from our experiences to have more spaces for human security. And thank you.
Merci. Thank you, dear Amal, for your speech, and thank you to have promoted so warmly and the many wonderful experience that we had on education and promoting gender-sensitive education, education to equality between women and girls in these 7 countries. And when you said, I can't prevent myself to comment what you said in our culture to explain the difficulties that you faced. I think that this experience we developed in the schools in the South shows is one more example of what I would call, beyond the diversity of our context, the universality of the problem that we face. And Sorry, you didn't hear me at all. Or did you hear
no,
me?
No, only the last.
We heard you, just the last sentence.
Okay. And the last, the things that I wanted to say is that not more than about 6 years ago in France, we tried to promote some approach of gender-sensitive approach in the schools. And we have been prevented to do it because there was a huge movement initiated by the far right. And we couldn't because they were pretending that we wanted to promote homosexuality in schools. So you see, we have a long way to do together also in our country and for the benefit of our countries over our difference of context and culture. Thank you very much, Amal. So what I will do now, I will thank very, very warmly all our speakers, and I will give the floor for a moment of discussion. Please present yourself when you take the floor, and be short if you can, and precise to whom the question is directed. Thank you very much. Miss Sabiha Khalil, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much for this actually significant session. And thank you, Ambassador Anne, and my colleague, my Syrian colleagues, and also the Palestinian colleague. I really appreciate what has been so far said about education. My background is feminist, as well as I work in politician also. But my background as a career, I was a teacher for 20 years. My first conflict with the education in the Syrian regime was when I was a child in my 8th year, when I have learned that Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi is an Arabic fighter or leader. When I came back home, my brothers said, no, he is Kurdish, he is not Arabic. So what I want to say that the curriculum in Syria actually was telling lies for the children when they were teaching us mere actually false history. Later, when I practiced being a teacher, I myself witnessed being violated as a teacher. Being Kurdish, I was deprived to talk a single word in schools, as well as my little pupils were unable to express themselves. I witnessed all these for more than 20 years. Right now, Syria is divided between de facto authorities, as well as the regime still exists with its ideologized education. And the education in the areas under the de facto authority is not, unfortunately, is even worse. Whether it is ideologized or it is fundamentalized. So actually tackling the issue of education in Syria is not a luxury one. It is a fundamental sector that affects each process that will lead to peace, since peace starts from schools. And as well as when we mention education that is sensitive to gender issues, this also will base for equal rights for women like men. So I have no question. I do appreciate this session and Ifi as a supporter. And I should mention I was part of the agenda and as a part of the feminist school also. We hope that we continue learning as well as education is part of paving the way for sustainable peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sabiha. I will leave the floor now to Massa Mufti. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I will not be able to open the camera because I'm speaking from Beirut and the connection in Lebanon, as you know, is very weak. So thank you again for this opportunity. And I would like to thank all of my colleagues who also, Sabah and Alice, for presenting what they did present. Myself, I am Massa Mufti. I'm an education specialist and researcher. I'm also a member of the Syrian Women Political Movement. I've also established an NGO in Lebanon for educating Syrian refugees. So I'm very happy to be part of this event today and be able to contribute with some questions. What I would like to really, comment on and basically to support what my colleague Alice has mentioned clearly is the limitation today. We have to realize the very critical limitation of the education and emergency framework. For the past 12 years, Syria has been ongoing a continuous protracted conflict. And we all know that the emergency in education and emergency framework was basically limiting the response in education to what we call BLN, basic literacy and numeracy, with some psychosocial support to primary education. We all know that education as a way to provide emancipation for girls and women cannot be done with basic literacy, numeracy, and PSS. That's one thing. In fact, the education and emergency framework has contributed in many ways to reinforce the root causes of the conflict by ignoring the fact, what Alice has mentioned, the divisiveness of the curriculum among four authorities today leading on different curriculum and agenda and politicizing the curriculum and reinforcing the divisiveness among society. That's one thing. The other thing is the deprofessionalization of the Syrian teacher. We all know that the core element of education is the teacher, is not the basic literacy and numeracy. And when we deprofessionalize and we don't provide empowerment and training for the teachers, we are basically losing the most important human capital in the education response and to help education to become more emancipatory. Third, Alice mentioned education overall. Sabah mentioned the education of the adult. What about the education of the most critical age group, which is the adolescents, the youth, who are the most exposed to child labor and early marriage? There are no solution today by this education and emergency framework. There are no solution to provide alternative pathway, accreditation, accredited secondary education and higher education. There are no provision for even middle and secondary education. These are some of the major issues. I will limit my participation here because I know others should be also talking, but I would highly, really, invite you to rethink the education and emergency framework, which has proven its really not only limitation, but failure to provide solutions on the ground. And today, this situation is even more exacerbated by the earthquake, which take us to below zero, where people are no longer even thinking of education. All they want is water, clean water, shelter, and food. Thank you very much.
Dear Massa, thank you for your very professional, into brackets, and passionate speech, which is really highlighting some major issues. And when we are talking about, when you are talking about the adolescent, it is really a crucial problem that we are facing.
Allow me to say, allow me to say one word,
Please.
please, again.
Please.
What unfortunately is happening today, that education and emergency framework is a form of a pedagogy of submission. What we need for women is a pedagogy of emancipation. It does not happen with the current framework and response provision that is being done. We have learned that so far 12 years, enough of what this response is providing. This is submissive response. We need emancipatory response. Thank you.
Thank you again for this beautiful conclusion. Thank you sincerely for your words. I will give the floor now to Nagam Kadri. You have the floor.
شكرا كثير وشكرا على هذا اللقاء. أنا حابة
Thank you so much for giving me the floor, and thank you for this event. And I would like to make a first comment, and then I will put forward two comments. We know that the economic situation in Syria is bad everywhere in Syria. So it is clear that as long as the situation is economic situation is so bad, the priority will not be given to education, and if it was given to education, it will be to education of boys, and girls will not have access, full access to education. There is also compensatory education, a scheme that has been put in place both by UN and USA. I wonder if it would be possible to put in place this type of package. Basically, this would be 2 years of education that would be given to those girls who were banned from pursuing their education, and it would be given under the mandate and with the guarantees of these two institutions. We have to shed light on the situation of these underage girls who do not have access to education, and I believe that it is important to have a content that has to do with civil education. This as a means to awareness raising. Of course, it can be included in other subjects. So we know that civil education is taught in France and in other countries, and I believe that the only Arab countries that has introduced civil education in its school system is Tunisia, so maybe we could learn from their experience. This should be going hand in hand with rehabilitation of teachers, male and female. In Northern America, teachers have to obtain a teaching qualified certificates. So these are university graduates that have to undergo additional training in order to be certified teachers. This is important for families, for students, as well as for teachers. And I was just to mention that when I moved to France, I was surprised that men were given the digit 1 and women digit 2 in the social security system, and we hope that there will be equality at the digit level in future in France as well.
Thank you very much for your speech. Thank you. I give the floor to Marwish Khilel. Shaikhi, sorry for the pronunciation. You can have the floor.
مرحبا أنا اسمي مهوش. مساء الخير مرحبا.
Hello, my name is Mahwish. Thank you so much, Effie. Thank you, dear Liliana. And thank you, Ma'am Ambassador, for being with us. And I would like to thank the panel speakers for their important interventions. I am from northeastern Syria. And I can tell you that education is in the Kurdish language in this part of Syria. So even the higher education is in Kurdish, and there are tens of thousands of young women who are taught in Kurdish, but these young women cannot join universities in other parts of Syria because their degrees and their education was in Kurdish. So we believe that the UN and international NGOs and the CSOs to recognize the Kurdish language as a language of education and recognize also the degrees and diplomas that are handed out by these education establishment. And until 2011, there was a great interest in girls' education in this area, but that is no longer the case. Girls are disappointed because they know that their degrees in Kurdish will not be recognized. But I also agree with those who said that curricula in all parts of Syria today are biased. But nevertheless, I would like to find a way to allow these young women to pursue their education in Arabic with the recognition of the degrees. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Education is really the center of a lot of issues. You underline the discrimination. There is exclusion, stereotype, reproduction of stereotypes, perpetuation of the dominant orders. So there is a lot of work to be done. I will give the floor to, I am sorry, I am not Arabic speaking yet. So I will give the floor to a person whose name is present on Arabic. Now, can you recognize yourself and take the floor? No. Yes, you just raised the hand again. So I will, you can talk.
ميسة.
Yes, you can talk.
شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you. My name is Misa Al Mahmoud. Thank you for this opportunity that's given to me to attend this meeting. My name is Maisa. I live in Fiazaz, a city that is northwestern Syria. And I would like to address the situation of education, especially the education of girls and women. Schools are not in a state that are not fit to take students in. There is also the problem of curricula. Curricula have to reflect the positions of the ruling authorities. The curricula do not meet the needs of students. We do not and we do not have officers who can actually supervise the education process and make sure that education is the education that is given to our students is good and that it will help them get jobs in the future. So girls and women do not have access to specialties. They cannot deepen or go deeper in their education. There isn't anything for these girls. There are also education fees are very high, and very often the families of girls are too poor to pay for these fees, and this is why girls will be married so early. There is also the problem of security in Syria. People do not feel that it is safe enough for girls to go to university. What we want in Syria today is an exhaustive solution. Because if we want to have good quality education, we will need first to have a political solution. We need to have a solution under the aegis of the United Nations. We need to have good quality curricula. We need to have conditions that are that will help students continue their education. But what is going on in Syria is that students are scared. They're scared on the way to school, on the way back from school or from higher education institution or establishment. They fear for their safety, the security, they fear bombings. And now families are reluctant to have their daughters continue their education. And anyway, they cannot afford to pay for that education because, as I said, the fees are far too high. And now, with the earthquake, families are just trying to survive. They're trying to find a place to live in, and education is perceived as a luxury. We need to have also schools built because the skills that existed.
Dear Madam, yes. Dear Madam, yes, I have to give the floor. You know, there is a very, very bad news is that we have 15 minutes left, unfortunately. So I will give the floor to two people for 2 minutes each. Unfortunately, I am not able to give the floor to everybody. And to allow Mr. Demeter to conclude. He has the Do you hear me? Yes, I will leave the floor to Mr. Mustafa Kanta. Mr. Mustafa Kanta, you can take the floor. So I will leave the floor to Rula, Mrs. Rula Obeid. A connection to the audio, sorry. Sorry. Mr. Kanta? Hello.
صباح الخير للجميع وبشكركم على الأجندة وإعادة
Good morning to you all, and I would like to thank you for this event, and also to thank Effie and all those who took part in this prepared this agenda. It's not only the problem of access to education for girls, but there is the overall problem of the poor quality of education. And I have one comment or proposal to make. I'm trying to be as succinct as possible. Do you think the people who are more informed about this situation are outside Syria? And I would like to know whether it's possible to have an experimental project in the different parts of Syria. We know that there are studies that have been conducted. There is a knowledge base, there is competence, there are men and women activists who are interested in the topic and very knowledgeable. But we don't always need to raise the ceiling of ambitions, but we have to do something, and we need to work with those parties that could help us implement this experimental project, where we would have some pilot schools. It could be in areas of the self-administration, in those parts of Syria where there is talk about women's rights, their right to education. And I've visited some of these areas, and we know some of the problems that exist are underground. But we could at least introduce this idea and see whether it could be implemented first on a small scale as an experimental project, and maybe it could be mainstreamed later on. I think it's difficult to conduct such an experiment at the level of Syria. We have to be real or realistic, and we also know that there's so much suffering in Syria now. But we could at least put this idea forward, and maybe we could have some experimental schools on the ground. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear Madam, for your speech. You know, it is awful if we have to be cut during our meeting, so I will apologize sincerely not to be able to give the floor to more people. The time passes so quick that I want to finish our meeting properly in good conditions. So I will now. I have the pleasure to introduce Mr. Dimitar Shalev, who will give some concluding remarks. Mr. Shalev.
Merci beaucoup.
You have been, I will introduce you. I will not make the mistake that I made with our ambassador. You have been appointed to the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights as a representative, head of OHCHR office for Syria since 2019. And you have now 30 years of professional experience, 19 of which were the UN. You served at the head of OHCHR Tunisia office from 2012 to 2017, and as acting resident coordinator in 2016. You have been coordinator of the secretariats of several UN commissions of inquiry and chief of Europe and Central Asia section in Geneva, acting regional representative for Europe in Brussels and acting regional representative for Central Asia in Bishkek. Mr. Shalev, I give you the floor. Thank you for your presence with us. Please activate your microphone. Please activate your microphone.
Thank you
Mr.
very
Shalev.
much. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I wanted to thank the organizers, the Euromite Feminist Initiative, the UN Reports Network, Women UN Reports Network, and Sweden for organizing this meeting. We had more than 150 participants, which shows the big interest in this issue and the need to continue this discussion. I understand that there is not much time left, but this was a proof that how much this discussion is important. The UN Human Rights Office, which is based in Beirut, is following the different violations of the right to education. But what I wanted to say, and it was mentioned here by many, is that this right to education is an empowerment right. It is closely related to issues such as the constitution, the humanitarian relief, issues related to other rights, to violence against women and girls, to the issue of missing people, which is very close to our heart as well, and to which the Euromite Feminist Initiative also contributed to a landmark report by the Secretary General in August last year. So this is empowerment, right? It's an issue which relates, as it was said, not only to access, but also to quality. The issues that were raised about education in the Northeast, the Northwest. So it just shows how much it concerns all of us. And ultimately, it concerns the political process and peace and security. So I just wanted to finish by saying that investing in the right to education is one of the best investment that states, member states can make. And thank also Sweden for their efforts in this regards. Thank you, Ms. Lilian, for convening this, moderating this. Thank you to all our distinguished panelists, for all participants who took part of the discussion, and finally also to our interpreters as well during this 1.5 hours. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur, for your nice words. I think that we will have to finish now just in time. It was, for me, a huge pleasure to be with you. It was a huge pleasure to notice how much this issue and your issue, my Syrian colleagues, have attracted so much interest, because let us say that at least in my country, we don't hear very much in the radio and the TV about what this situation in a political situation in Syria. You can imagine this. So we will continue to work together. We will continue our work. You can rely on our constant solidarity. As I told you, you can find on our website the result of the report on the Regional Forum on Education that we have organized recently in Amman. It is a very precious, I think, moment, and that will be a source of help for our Syrian colleagues in their relentless fight on education. Thank you for all of you. Thanks for your presence. Thank you for your beautiful speeches. Thanks for your involvement. And thanks for your bravery. And I would also say a word of thanks for my friend, colleague Eloise Herman, who is from WERN, who is co-organizing this event with us and who is a strong support for our work since, I would say, now almost 2 decades. And hope to see you physically, far from all these technical problems. My heart is with you. My thoughts are with you. Hope to see you soon, and hope the better for all of you. You should understand what it means. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lilian. Great facilitation.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye, all of you.
شكرا جميعا. شكرا ليليان.
Yes.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone, and thank you, Lilian.
Thank you.